Oh, it's a bold Brad Friday. I'm live in San Francisco. Do you always find it weird, Brad Bakken? Welcome to the program. I'm Bill Reiter. When people like me are on the road and you have to look at the bed in the background, I got the old double bed at the Marriott this time around.
At least it looks like it's fairly made.
I made it. Yeah. I actually slept on this one. One. I stacked all my clothes there. In San Francisco, we'll talk about that Warriors game. We'll get into the Lakers a little bit. You've got some bold predictions, team of the night coming up. Producer Aaron had mentioned this, and I think it's really interesting. You've got these three players that I think you could argue have defined their generation of basketball, maybe in this order: LeBron James, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant. And in varying degrees, they're all getting to a point where they are fading or getting old enough that their reliability on the court or off the court isn't guaranteed. Do you see in the start of this season, Brad, KD, Steph, LeBron giving way to the next era and us sort of beginning whatever post those guys looks like? Because I do.
It's interesting. You know, this talk has been around for a while of what the league is going to do for sort of a torchbearer when the LeBron-Steph era fades out. You know, I would argue Kevin Durant belongs in that conversation from a talent and production standpoint, but he has not carried the league from a marketing standpoint. It has been LeBron and Steph's league for a long time. And we're waiting for the next guy. Anthony Edwards seems viable. In terms of production, LeBron has had a run recently that makes it seem like, and to some degree, it's true, he does not look like quite the same player. I still think that Steph and Kevin Durant, these little nicks and bruises, I see no fall off in either one of those guys when they're on the court. So I suppose you could trace these little injuries that are keeping them out for a game here or there. I know Durant's been out a little bit longer, but I'm not ready to say that, oh man, these guys are getting old and they're not. I still think these are three of the 10 best players in the league. LeBron can start to be questioned, but I don't think the fall off is that precipitous.
Let me refine the question and the topic, because I think top 10 players is fine. It's a different level of greatness to be good enough that your mere presence makes your team a contender. And here's some context. When Kevin Durant plays this year, the Suns are 11-2. 11-2. When he doesn't play, they are 1-7, including games like last night where they lose to bad teams. So there is some reason to suggest that his mere presence on the floor makes them one of the best teams in the NBA by record.
Exactly.
But if you include the niggles and you include the sort of like the injuries and the ability to be hurt, do you believe that the Lakers, the Warriors, or the Suns are actually capable of winning a championship this year? Because the only team I think that's true for maybe is the Warriors. And if the answer is no, then I think we have reached one of those. Because if those guys being around doesn't make you a contender, that's different than it was three years ago, for sure.
I think it's different than about 6 or 7 years ago. You know, we got to remember.
Steph won 2 years ago.
Yeah, he did, and I think that the Warriors were a really good team, and to your point, they might be one of the three that's a contender this year because they're deep, they can play defense. It wasn't because Steph these weren't the first Cavs team that went to and you could just say
he was pretty good, dude. And
no,
Clay
he was good, but I'm saying
it's
not. This was not a case. We have seen cases where these guys, like LeBron in LA for years, has been an unbelievable player, but the team's just not good. This isn't the first we're seeing that these guys aren't good enough to be the only guy and completely carry a franchise. LeBron has needed basically a super team his entire career, and here's the deal. It's not because he's falling off. The league is just too good for that now. I don't think Steph's getting worse.
Fair.
I don't think KD's getting worse. The league is too good right now. You could go back to the days when and this is sort of one of my Jordan LeBron takes, but if you look at a team like back in the day when Russell Westbrook and Paul George were on the same team when they were in Oklahoma City, you had two MVP caliber players. Like, you were in the finals. If you were Stockton and Malone and then whoever else, you were in the finals. Or Gary Payton and Sean Kemp and whoever else, you're in the final. Now you have two great players. If you don't fill out the supporting cast, you're in the play-in.
I'll gently push back. Let me jump. I'm gonna. And this could be wrong in the standings, say you're right and I'm wrong, but I'm just going to bet on the come, as they say in Vegas and craps. I think Joker's the best player in the world, and I think they're a championship level team by his mere presence, even if right now the standings don't say that. So you're right. It's a more competitive field. There's more parity, especially I think in the Western Conference. I think Joker's presence makes Denver.
Well, there's no question. You're right. Jokic is the best player in the world. I also believe that his presence make them a viable contender, maybe on the outskirts. But we're also talking about this in the sense of why are they now on the fringe and not clearly the best team? Because Jamal Murray's not as good anymore. They don't have any bench. And so, Joker's enough to put them on the fringes of the conversation. But even a player that good, who's very clearly the best player in the world, I would argue is possibly as good as LeBron was at his height. I really believe that. And still, his bench fell off. They less KCP. Jamal Murray falls off a little bit, and suddenly they're like fighting for a 6 seed maybe. And so I think, and even LeBron, we'll talk about this later when we get into the Lakers, but I think some of this is exaggerated with LeBron. I think it's a little bit of a stretch.
Do you? Oh, I don't.
Not the player he used to be, but specifically KD and Steph. We're still talking about 2 primetime elite players.
When they play. I think here's the thing, though. Kevin Durant, it's not that he's been durable his whole career, but if he can't stay on the floor for more than 50 games, and that's because of age. All right, so speaking of the Warriors and speaking of this sort of nuanced conversation that you need help and you need support, I'm in the Bay. They played the Rockets last night. Steph didn't play, as you know. No Draymond Green. I just assumed that they were going to lose, and I was going to watch a brutal game. It was a great game, and your Warriors won. Incredible defense. I'm out here to actually talk to Jerry Stackhouse and talk and write about the D, so I'm excited that happened. Jonathan Kuminga was amazing at the start and, more importantly, amazing at the end of that game. And you're a fan, so you watch these with a different eye than I do, but for as long as Kuminga's been in the league, whether he's got minutes or he hasn't, there have always been these bedazzling moments that he has, even if they're fleeting. Last night was a bedazzling basketball game from him and a really impressive win against a really good Rockets team. This reinforces for me that if Kerr can figure out the rotations, if he can utilize the talent he has properly, they're on the fringes, but I would if you made a list of Western Conference teams that can win a championship, I would put the Warriors on that team. And I feel better about that after last night.
It's so important. It's, by the way, bedazzling game. Great word. Great word. and Kuminga, he's such an interesting case because all the time we hear about these teams that are sort of on the fringes of contention. They still have a superstar player, but they need to make that one move. And are they going to mortgage the future? And you always there's this conglomerate of players that seem to be like untouchable before we know what they are. The Warriors made Brandon Podziemski one of these players. For a while, they made James Wiseman one of these players. I remember in Miami when they wanted Damian Lillard, it was like take my eyesight, but don't take Jaime Jaquez. You can't have that. We put these players and Kuminga was one of these players. Like you can't have him, and that has to pay off at some point when you've got a team that's ready to win. If you make an over-the-top trade, but you hold off on the trade because you're not getting this guy. Maybe the Warriors could have got Larry Markkinen, but they wouldn't trade Podziemski. Kuminga now has to make that worth it. All these, the Wiseman thing hurt them. They ended up winning anyway, but they could have got rid of him a lot sooner. Kuminga, they've held firm to him, and I agree with you. He gives them an element of athleticism, of full court force, and defense hasn't always been his in terms of focus and rotation and the nuance, but in terms of just sheer athleticism and range and length and ability to cover the geometry of defense, he's tremendous, and I think it has warranted them holding off on trading him. Him and Andrew Wiggins specifically are the reason that the Warriors are, to your point, and I agree with, a fringe title contender. Wiggins is basically back to 2022 form, and more than Steph. Steph is a constant. It's the other guys that make them a contender. Andrew Wiggins is the reason they were a contender and eventually won that year. He was the second best player on the team. Kuminga's now coming into that role where they don't have a lot of athleticism. Those are the two guys that can get forcefully downhill when the offense stalls out and the system isn't creating shots, particularly in non-Curry minutes. And that's a big reason why they're 4-1 this year. They used to go off a cliff when Curry didn't play. They're 4-1 this year when Curry doesn't play.
And by the way, can I also credit the defense? Because they're a top 10 offensive and defensively rated team. Last night, they won that game largely with defense. I mean, they did a great job against – this is the first time I've seen the Rockets in person this year, by the way, and I know we know this. they're fun too.
Oh yeah.
And they're athletic and they play great and they play hard. You bring up something about Wiggins though, and now that we have to go, well, let's go into the weeds on the Warriors. It's the Warriors. Why not? I'm with you. And Wiggins was really good last night too. He has obviously just vanished from the face of the earth the last couple seasons, and in some seasons for basically entire seasons. And it's hard to peg. It's not like it was injury. It's personal. What is your confidence level that you can rely on Andrew Wiggins to just be like really good? You don't have to be a superstar, right? Just to be what you saw last night the rest of the way, because that makes like that's an important piece. And you're right about the athleticism, and it's a huge question mark.
It's everything, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting you put it that way because Colin Ward Henniger and I, our CBS colleague, we always talk about our confidence meters when we're in our chat rooms, and it's like this guy shoots. As soon as the ball goes in the air, what's your confidence meter that it's going in? I have a ton and always have had a ton of confidence in Andrew Wiggins, even when he was in Minnesota. And I don't know if it's an aesthetic thing that I like the smoothness of his game.
He looks the part.
He just when he goes up to shoot, I'm always surprised when he doesn't play well. And I think it's sort of been the enigma of his career outside of the two this season, 22, when he was a focal part of a championship team, that like this guy is so easy to watch. He's so talented. He's so natural. He's so fluid. Even though he's not the best ball handler, the way he gets into his shot, I do have a lot of confidence in Andrew Wiggins. I'm more surprised when he's not playing well. So I think this guy was the number one pick for a reason. I think this is the guy that was the reason that the Warriors made that trade and got him back in the D'Angelo Russell deal. They targeted the right guy. He brings two-way toughness. When he's defending, he's the top caliber perimeter defender. I just think he found his place in Golden State where he doesn't have to be the scoring guy. He doesn't have the mentality. He's always had the physicality, but he doesn't have the mentality, sort of like a Karl Anthony Towns, to be the guy. I thought he was pressed to be that too much in Minnesota. I think he's perfect in Golden State, and I have confidence in him and Kuminga, and they're a large reason why I've believed in the Warriors from the start. They're not as good as they were when they at the record suggested at the beginning, but they're a good team. They're a very good team.
I agree with you on the record, but I want to add this caveat. I think they are that good in terms of ceiling, or as you said, being a fringe contender. Because as an exercise, I was trying to think, how many teams do I believe can win an NBA championship in the West this year? And I got to kind of 4 to 6 teams, depending how you evaluate. For me, at the bottom of that is like Memphis, the Warriors, the Timberwolves. And I'm yes on Memphis, fringe. And I'm more yes on the Warriors. And part of the reason, too, and it's something you hit on, and the record you gave when Steph is out, if you are able to manage Steph and to have they sat him last night for basically maintenance against a really good Rockets team while on a 5-game losing streak that they snapped. And if you can play well when there's no Steph and there's no Dre, and you can win some of those games, it allows you to do, and I keep going back to this, but what the Spurs did their last couple years when they won championships, when Duncan was still there, if you look back at that, those guys played crazy limited minutes. This began, as producer Aaron pointed out, I was covering this team, when Pop didn't put his 3 stars on a plane to Miami for a big game. But a few years after that, after they got punished, they would just limit minutes, and those guys wouldn't play a lot. And they were able to maintain Tony Parker and Ginobili and Duncan. So they had enough legs in the playoffs. And then Duncan was able to elevate his minutes a little bit in his play and really save it for May and June. If the Warriors can, to a degree, do a model of that with Steph and with Dre and not fall off in a really crowded Western Conference, because it's a few games are going to matter. I think it gives them a catalyst that makes me believe in them when we get to May more, Brad, than other teams outside of, Oklahoma City and whoever the elite are.
I totally agree with that. You have to find a model that allows you to get to the finish line without right now, we talked about Jokic earlier. He's having to be the best player in the world every night just for them to be like a little bit above 500. And they have good players. They're not. They got a thin bench. Jamal Murray hasn't been great, but they drop off by 31 points. You look at cleaning the glass. I think it's 31, closer to 32 points per 100 possessions when he's not on the court. So forget the games that he misses entirely. They are losing games in the 10 minutes he doesn't play, and that's where the Warriors have been. It's not just that they're winning. Look, if Steph misses a month, they're screwed. I don't care that they're 4-1 right now. The point is, can they win or at least stay neutral in his non-minutes so he can play 31 minutes and then get to the finish line, and then he can play 40. Then Dre can play 40. Then Wiggins can play 40. That's the key. None of these teams are good enough in this good of a league to miss a month. We see it with the Suns and Durant. The key is the bench minutes. That's what's hurting the Nuggets, and that's where the Warriors have been able to withstand. Their offense still goes off a cliff. You look at the numbers, but the defense withstands them when Curry's not on the court.
We got a break, but real quick, you'll appreciate this. Last night at the game, Pat Spencer had a really nice pass. Did you see it? He had like a little, and I sent a note. I think you're on there, but I definitely sent it to producer Aaron. I'm here for the 13-man rotation. Let's get him in them. It's not true, but I like seeing these guys roll out a bunch of random dudes and a bunch of dudes.
You forget how great the 11th player on an NBA roster is. I mean, we're talking about if Steve Kerr trims the rotation, you're talking about potentially, I don't know, Brandon Pajemski or Trace Jackson Davis, like not playing. That's the guys you're talking about cutting out if you go down to 9 guys. So NBA players are incredible, all of them.
And you need minutes to have that. Going back to Kuminga, you also just need minutes to have the confidence to grow as a player.
Yep.
Look at Moses Moody. More minutes, and I think he's there's a ceiling there. There's an absolute ceiling there.
He's on such thin ice with Kerr. I know. When he's like playing awesome, that's a very difficult way to play, looking over your shoulder for playing time. But it's part of being on a good deep team. So
with massive expectations.
Yeah.
All right. So you don't think the LeBron era is over? What does that mean for a Lakers team? The shine has come off. JJ's hair is gray, and we are going to tell you what it means when we come back in a moment here on Beyond the Arc. All right, welcome back into the show. Bill Reiter, Brad Bakken, Beyond the Arc. Happy Friday. Please hit the like button, leave a comment on something we're talking about. Subscribe on YouTube. You can turn on the notifications, little bell thing, so you'll know when we're doing our thing. One of the things that I love about the NBA season, and it's long enough, and there's enough ups and downs for everybody, Brad, that any take you've had can look really stupid or really smart at some point in the season. You and I shared a view that the Lakers were going to be underwhelming relative to expectations this year. It didn't look great at the start of the year. It looks real good now. I think that the history of this season is going to be much more likely to make you and I look smart than stupid on our I think, Lakers skepticism entering this year.
Well, you definitely got the support for that right now. To your point, Lakers are not playing well. When you watch them play, They do look like a team that just sort of like isn't in the fight. They especially against Miami. That game, and I think you're going to be prone to those games when you've got a guy like, Anthony Davis is so talented, but let's be honest, he's never been a guy that's going to lead sort of the energetic meter of a team. He's just kind of half-assed sometimes.
He can do it in moments, but you're right. Yeah. He's not doing it 4 games in a row, let alone 14.
So if he's got to kind of be the guy, they were kind of hoping Westbrook would be this guy for them, but somebody who's going to charge the engine. LeBron's too old to do it. AD's sort of sluggish demeanor. D'Angelo Russell's half asleep. They don't have the spark plug guy. And I think if they had that guy that just sort of forced them every night, even in stints, to play hard. Well,
that used to be LeBron, but LeBron's got
exactly, and that's where
foot off the pedal now.
That's where he can't. He can't be a defensive catalyst. He can't be a go-to scorer for 40 minutes. All these things, he's still very good, but they're lacking energy. So that's where. But I still think I made that prediction. I think largely you did as well, based on.
I thought they missed the play-in.
Yeah, but I think we both made it because we didn't think LeBron and AD could stay healthy.
I'll say yes. For me, I also thought and think that LeBron would age. I thought there was a factor of probability of LeBron looking his age by February that was real and an impact.
And I think that you've been proven right on that. We talk about the Olympics in terms of These young players who have the experience and they go through it like a Booker or an Anthony Edwards, and they come back so much better for it. Is it fair to question if LeBron, and he taxed himself, he went really hard at the Olympics.
Look at Luka too. Luka started slow.
Yeah, you wonder about all these tiny little things, and the Warriors track this more than any team, but like these tiny little, whether you play 34 minutes or 32 minutes, and those 2 minutes add up, and then the Olympic taxing, that adds up, and you put this sort of all together. I don't know. There's never going to be a tangible answer to that. What I will say about LeBron is that the Olympics did show me that he, in spurts, when he needs to be,
small spurts.
Yes, but here's the key thing to me with LeBron. This is the foundation of why I don't think he's done. And this is not just this year. He's becoming hugely dependent on the three-point shot. Late in his career, he has moved very much to much more of and become a very good one. Now, I think he's won for his last 23. Okay.
I think he is. That's correct.
I think he missed like 20 straight. So it's like we're in the middle. We talk about this from a team standpoint a lot, where you have these ebbs and flows of shooting sequences. I think LeBron's in a tough shooting sequence, and I think when these shots, and it's not necessarily a good marker that you need your shot. These teams that only play defense when their shots are going in, that picks the energy up. You don't want to be one of those teams. But I do think the Lakers are one of those teams. And when LeBron's shots start going in, which they're going to, he's become a good three-point shooter. He's not going to shoot like this. I think the energy picks up. If they stay healthy, I still think they'll be better than I predicted. I don't think they're going to be in 30 wins. If they lose their health, throw it out the window. But I think most of this right now, he's still 22-9-8. 22-9-8.
I know. I
know relative to his standard. I know
it's a great right.
But I think a lot of that 22 points is tied to the shooting dip, and I do think that'll come back. He's just more tied to 3-point shooting now than he ever has been.
And he was great at the start of the year. It was basically Steph Curry at the start of the year, and then he hit a wall. I'm going to gently push back, or maybe not so gently, because the last many years, if you look, LeBron always, as he got older, was able to sort of pace himself, do a light jog, if you will, through an NBA season. And then when they really needed it, he could sprint. And that need to sprint has come earlier and earlier every season. And some of that has to do with the teams around him have been less effective and less able to sort of fill in some of those gaps when he's not around. But he's been good at basically energy conservation and understanding how to sort of pace himself through a season. He had to do his energy burst at the start of the year out of his rhythm at the Olympics. And I think it's going to have consequences. I think he's hitting that wall now. He didn't get his time off. And it's, as we noted, Kevin Durant, impact. Steph Curry, impact. Luka Doncic, impact. I mean, and you said it, 2 minutes a game can matter. Steph Curry needing to sit a game against the Rockets can matter. And so it doesn't matter if it's a smaller sample size of games. For me in Paris, you're flying across the world. It's high. And I know you're playing with the best players in the world, but it's emotionally intense. And remember, the USA won gold, but there was this sense of risk and this sense of impending doom early in that process where there was an emotional tax too, where we thought, oh, maybe USA is going to lose some of these games or not get gold. I think the Olympics are a problem for a lot of the guys that played, especially guys like LeBron, KD, and Steph, who are getting older, who need maintenance, and who did not get it over the summertime.
I agree with that. And I also think the reason that you see like the best of LeBron at this age, we in this age of NBA analysis, it's we love to be coaches and talk about X's and O's and all these, to some degree, perhaps even a large degree, basketball very often comes down to energy and competitiveness. And think about anything that you do in your life at 40. You're just not as quick to get out of bed. You're not as pumped to do things that you. And so
those drinks hit you a little more, Brad. And on a Friday morning.
Forget the drinks. Drink. but yeah, LeBron was at full energy, full competition level, full focus, full awareness in the Olympics. He was gassed up, fired up, ready every game because they were short spurts. He can't be that anymore. I still think he can be a very good player, but energy is different. And he can't bring the energy to pump the team up to get it going.
Especially if he's got to do it in February. Look, exactly. Part of the reason he had a really good game against Miami, I think, the other night is because, and this goes under the radar a little bit, but I covered I covered LeBron in Miami. I know LeBron. I know people in Miami. They hate each other. That's not gone. Miami they don't like LeBron James. Pat Riley, his culture, do not like LeBron James. LeBron doesn't like anyone who doesn't like him. So he's going to go hard against Miami. So, yeah, to your point, he can do these energy bursts where he's great in small sample sizes. What happens when the Lakers in February are flirting with the 10 seed and the Spurs are still better than we thought, and whatever and LeBron's got to play like it's playoff basketball in March and April. I think he can carry a team sometimes. But the plan, I think, was always, I'll carry these guys when we get to April 15th. Yeah. Now you're going to have to start carrying these guys in December because you can't win basketball.
Well, they're not.
It's a huge problem.
That's why they're not championship contenders. So right, I guess these are multi-tiered conversations. The Lakers aren't good enough. They're not. So and LeBron's not good enough to make a bad team good anymore. So I'm talking about this relative to what the Lakers can be, which I think is better than what I predicted. Because I don't think I think he's more tied to 3-point shooting. I think that'll come back. But the energy part is the part going back to, because he just can't get the team doesn't compete. That's the biggest problem with the Lakers. Now, they're not good enough even if they do compete, but they're so limited in so many areas in terms of like their ability to defend the perimeter. They're a walkway, they're a runway to the lane. They can't defend the perimeter. They don't have a ton of shooting. They don't have somebody to create consistent offense outside of LeBron. So they have all these functional problems. But if they're also not going to compete and play hard, then they're sunk. And when you have to have a 40-year-old be your guy to turn the gas up, that's my problem with this team. Now, that's why if we're being frank about this, the Lakers haven't been good enough for a long time. That's why we've been talking about the trade. They tried it with Russell Westbrook. Look, Rob Pelinka, he didn't do anything with this roster. They have not put this together that needs to be in support of LeBron James. They need two players. They need perimeter defenders. They need people that can support him now so that, to your point, he can jog a little bit and then punch it when it's time to get there. They are not good enough to get there now. So at best, they're only a game up on the Spurs right now, who are in the 11th spot. And there's a lot of season to go. Dude, we can have a conversation right now, Bill, about Zion, Anthony Davis, these teams that are fooling themselves and have been for years. They should be looking to trade these guys. If we really want to get real about the Lakers, they don't have the horses, and Rob Pelinka has not proven to have the acumen to put the right team around. And he's had opportunities to put the right kind of just straight up shooting and perimeter defense. Let Anthony Davis be the big guy. He's the pick and roll partner. Let LeBron be LeBron. Shooting and perimeter defense. They just haven't done it. They had options on the periphery, and they're not good enough. And LeBron is not good enough anymore to take a bad team and make it good.
To prepare to transition into your bold predictions, I'm going to ask you a couple yes or no questions.
Okay.
And I'll answer them too. Is Rob Pelinka an above average GM? No, it's not. Here's a harder one. Is JJ Redick a good NBA coach?
Incomplete, but I would err toward yes, because he's supremely smart. I think he is unbelievably smug to anybody who's not in the pro basketball fraternity. But I think,
and even to some of them,
fraternity, I think within that fraternity, he's going to be smug to us, but he's in that fraternity. I think he communicates well. I think he has the respect of the guys, and he's obviously incredibly smart. So yeah, I would lean toward yes.
A lot of smart people who play in the NBA have failed as coaches.
Sure.
You're right. Jury's out. Yeah, that's a hard one to answer. All right. Also, and I know this isn't new, but I'm going to say it. LeBron James has brought in his buddy to be his coach. And remember, had the Lakers draft Bronny, and that's quietly, maybe more quietly, not working out. It's just, right, like these things are real. This has an impact. So, yeah, there's not the team around LeBron. LeBron shares a lot of responsibility.
Hey, listen, Bill, we're talking about a team that is not built around the periphery. They already lack for anybody, really that can consistently help in these certain areas that kill them. And they wasted a roster spot on Bronny.
They wasted the spot.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah, it's a real thing. All right, so every Friday we do this. It is Brad's bold predictions. You do not want to miss them. They're moments away here on Beyond the Arc.
If you love football, this is the best time of the year.
This is as big as it gets.
The stuff of absolute dreams.
We are back. I'm broadcasting from my San Francisco hotel room. The old double beds in the background, Bradley. All right, and I'm going to Warriors Timberwolves tonight. Hopefully we'll get Steph and Dre. I think we will. I want to, it is weird to go to a Warriors game and not see Steph on the floor and not see Dre on the floor. And I'm still not used to not being at Oracle. And Chase Center's awesome by definition. It's shiny, so easy to get. I miss Oracle, man. That place had an energy even before people got in the building.
It was unbelievable. I went to Oracle quite a bit through the dog years, and it was still just incredible. Incredible.
Those fans did deserve that run that you got. Maybe you'll continue.
You were with the rich crowd. You're with the rich crowd now over at Chase.
They're all rich, dude. So I got there 3 hours early yesterday because I wanted to say hi to people and I had some meetings. And normally, if you're at an arena 3 hours early, when you're on the floor, even 2 hours, there's nobody there. There are rich people everywhere. It's fine, but with their kids and they're basically rolling in tours of rich people to walk on the floor, and it's an energy. It is busier 2 hours before a game, and it feels less energetic than empty.
Rich people like events like that. I got to tell you a little story. So my Thanksgiving, I get invited to these friends of mine. I had no idea that their cousin is like super rich. And I mean, like movie rich. So I end up at this beach house for Thanksgiving, and it's a $4 million beach house down here in South Florida that they only use for parties. So they don't live in it. They just have this vacant beach house. We get there. They have flown in Harry Connick Jr. Do you know who Harry Connick Jr. is?
Yes, I do. This is an obnoxious story already.
They have flown in Harry Connick Jr. to sing and play piano to them while they eat Thanksgiving dinner. Now listen, somebody's listening out there, maybe they got the true story, but there were rumors floating around that this cat picked up $750,000 for a half an hour. So I'm sure. So these rich people that go to these Warriors games, they probably paid $100,000 to get their picture with Steph Curry. $750. Now we were the neighbors on the other side of the fence, like peeking up over the fence, listening to Harry for free. It was unbelievable. Half hour, this guy showed up, sang like 7 songs, danced with the wife, and left. $750,000.
Let me give you a story. A buddy of mine that I've known for 20 years moved to San Francisco, started a bunch of companies. Then it worked. He's a literal billionaire. He is a famous billionaire who lives in San Francisco. And we hang out and we go out to dinner when I'm here, and people stop and talk to him. He's famous in those circles. He knows nothing about sports. A few years ago, he hit me up. He's like, hey, he knows nothing about sports. Are you going to be at the Warriors, whatever playoff game tonight? I'm like, no, man, I'm in another town. Why? He goes, oh, I got floor seats and I got them for work. I thought you might be here to watch Steve Curry. That's who's sitting courtside. And I won't say like guys
$30,000 for each of those tickets.
He didn't want to be there. Like halfway through, he's like, this is stupid. I don't like basketball. It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. I was
Steve Curry.
Yeah. It'd be nice.
Buy someone to tutor you on sports, dude.
I'm telling you. If you got that kind of money, you can get it. Yeah. Anyway, we digress.
Right.
Yeah. So moral of my story is that I didn't pay a cent for it, but I saw Harry Connick on Thanksgiving.
Good for you. I love that. All right, let's do some I don't know how many you have. I'm excited. It's like a tasting menu of sports surprises. Yeah. Let's go. Brad's bold predictions.
I'm tracking these too. I'm doing pretty well.
You are? You are? Good.
So Wemby still can't shoot. But here's the deal.
Stop it.
No, still can't. Let's look at the numbers.
Stop it.
Okay, so this is what I'm going to say. The Rockets, you saw them last night.
Yeah.
Their offense, and it's part of the reason maybe the Warriors were able to win, defending last night with one big game from Jonathan Kuminga. Wiggins.
That's good.
But because they can't shoot. The Rockets, their most voluminous shooters, Fred VanVleet and Jalen Green, neither of them can shoot. They're very low 30 percentiles. But they, to me, are a team that can play above what their statistics suggest offensively. They do have playmakers. Jalen Green can take over a game. Fred VanVleet can take over a game. Yeah. Sengun can take over a game. So on any given night, they can play above their head offensively. And what Ime Udoka has done there in terms of changing the culture, what the Lakers thought they were going to do with JJ Redick. This coach really changed the culture. And I think the Rockets are going to be a top 4 seed in the Western Conference. I really believe that on the strength of their defense. And what we just talked about with the Lakers, that team competes every single night, And that matters in the regular season when a lot of these teams are half-assing it, 50% of the games at least. Rockets come to play with something to prove every night. They're a function of their coach's identity, and their offense is better than the statistics suggest. I think the Rockets are going to be a top 4 seed.
Let me add on to that. Obviously, every team in the NBA wants Kevin Durant, and many teams wish the Suns had decided to blow it up last year and move on from him. Can you imagine KD, though, on this Rockets team? If you just plugged – you'd have to move a bunch of these guys. But
they'd be the title favorite. I'd make them the
100%. They'd be like a Thunder-level team, depending on kind of what got moved out. All right.
Yeah, so, and you're right. And even if it's not KD, maybe it's Jimmy Butler, but you're right. On top of the optimism that I have for their roster, they're also ripe for a consolidation trade.
Yes.
And so who knows what they make by February. I love the Rockets. They're going to be a top 4 seed.
All right, top 4. Now, it's bold, but they're right. Where are they right now? I don't even know. Like second or third? They're pretty high.
And I think Memphis is going to be up there, too. I think Memphis is going to be. I'll make that. I know that's not terribly bold, but I know you like Memphis.
I had them third, I think, in my preseason predictions. I think after Oklahoma.
I think that's a good call on your part. They haven't even played with Jackson and Smart and Morant and like their best guys, Bane's
huge.
Those 4 guys have played 50 minutes together.
They haven't had a run at their core.
Because of the depth. And look, they're killing people in the paint. But with Bane comes back, Kennard is back now. When the 3-point shooting starts to match that paint production, that downhill force of Morant, they compete defensively. Taylor Jenkins, they go deep. I love the Grizzlies. I actually think they'll be top 4 too. So I'm running out of top 4 teams.
I think the Grizz can make the NBA Finals. I don't think they will, but they're on the list of teams that can do it.
The one thing to watch with them, Bill, is late game offense. I'm always scared of point guards who can't shoot in late game offense. When the game isn't as wide open and there's not sort of these cracks to slip into and transition and mismatches and cross matches and all these things, and you sort of have to just space the floor on your own volition. I very do worry about end of games with point guards who can't shoot because you basically have to do that for spacing.
My memory, and it could be wrong, is the year that the Lakers made that run 2-3 years ago to the conference finals. They beat a better Memphis team in the rate, and I think that was part of the equation. If I remember right, because I covered that series. I think Memphis just struggled in the fourth quarter.
They were there the year the Warriors won the title. The Warriors beat them, and the Grizzlies. They've been there. We know they're that good. I do worry about the end of games, but I'll say that as a bold strategy or a bold prediction. I do think Memphis and Houston will be top 4 seeds. And then I'm going to move over to the East with my other bold prediction. I don't know what the seed is going to be, but the Atlanta Hawks.
Yes.
The Atlanta Hawks are going to be in the playoffs. And I'm going to say they're going to win a first-round series.
Whoa, that's a bold prediction.
I do think they're going to win a first-round series. And if you look past the top 2 in the East, I think they're going to get in as a 6th seed or better. But they're not going to go up. Okay, so they're going to end up playing Orlando or, who maybe
they could beat Orlando.
Yeah, definitely beat Orlando. I think they could. I think they could give a run for the money to the Cavs. I don't think the Cavs are as good as this team. I think they could give the Knicks. I think they give the Knicks a run.
I think the Knicks are. I don't think Milwaukee's very good still. I know they're playing really well.
Dude, they beat one. They beat Atlanta. They beat one team with a winning record. This is a schedule stretch.
You got to win these games. Yeah. We talk right.
But Atlanta and they've kind of figured something out with Trae Young. My bold prediction from years ago couldn't look better. He's still a very below average 3-point shooter, but they have turned him loose in a playmaking way. He's got 100. I counted him a couple days ago. Don't quote me on this, but it's very close. I think he's got 119 assists over his last 19 games. He is a supreme passer.
It's also true that Quinn Snyder's an exceptional coach, and he's figured out whatever he needed to figure out. And this maybe the roster helps now.
The 3 wings, Bill. The 3 wings. I'm with you. We didn't talk about like Isaiah Hartenstein going to OKC. That wasn't under Alex Caruso. That wasn't Paul George or Karl Anthony Towns moving. So huge move. Atlanta getting Dyson Daniels, who should honestly be in the DPOY conversation.
Yeah.
For years, they've been saying, how do you support Trae Young defensively? You got to have wings that can switch everything. And then you've got to have athletes all around to take advantage of that passing instinct that he has. Them putting Dyson Daniels, okay, Jalen Johnson is on his way to being an all-star, and Zachary Rissache. This guy that they took number 1, who's hanging under the cloud of this was a dog class and nobody's in. Yeah, he's not going to be a franchise player like a typical number 1 player would be, but he's really good. And those three guys defending on the perimeter, they're all young with something to prove, the energy every night, the way they support Trae Young defensively, the way Quinn Snyder has turned him loose as a distributor and not being so reliant on him making threes. Because let's face it, we're however many years into his career, he's a 33% three-point shooter. You can't just be a gunner. They've turned him loose as a facilitator. They put 2-way wings around him, and they've got something going with that blueprint. They're going to be a playoff team, and I think they're going to win a first-round series.
I love it. Are you ready for team of the night, or are there more? Yeah. I don't want you. All right, don't want to use up all your bold
no, let's go.
bullets. All right, I'll go first. So I was, whenever I'm traveling, it is hard to watch other. I try on. I'll go Warriors. I was at the game. We already talked about it, but just the defensive effort, the way Kuminga played, the way Kuminga closed in that fourth quarter and played like a superstar who can close a game. Great game for the Warriors. And as we discussed earlier, could bode well going forward.
Bill, I got to ask you this. So seeing them in person, one of the big tent poles of the Warriors when they've been good over the years is the chemistry. Do you think that Clay leaving, do you think that it has put a spark back in that team that they're really the bench seems to celebrate like the old days now?
Yeah. So, and I was in the locker room too. So I will say this. I don't certainly Clay leaving is an important factor. I don't know how much of it's that, how much of it's another year removed from Jordan Poole, right? They are a happier team than I can remember.
That's a good way to put it.
Since I covered them in the finals against Boston. Was that 2 years ago?
That's a good way to put it.
2.5 years ago?
Yeah. Happy. That's a good way to put it. You know, when Kuminga had that game-sealing drive last night, which was awesome, and that's the type of thing that like sometimes when you need to finish a game and it can't just be Curry every time, like you need some guy to put his, like LeBron used to be able to do, put his head down, go to the rim.
Yep, that's right. Hard hat time.
When he finished that, Draymond and Steph just exploded off the bench.
By the way, those guys know he's talent recognition, right? Like talent. We don't have time. I don't want to get into a Steve Kerr thing, but also like maybe Kerr's evolved a little bit too, and playing some of the guys, maybe playing guys more minutes too helps with people.
It's about time. Right? Jeez,
I know.
We've
been talking about Kuminga forever about not getting.
And Moody, he's
still
tight on these young guys. But you're right. I think you're right. I just wanted to get your take on seeing them in person because
they were happy. Yeah, happy vibe
is a good
happy vibe.
My team of the night is going to be the Kings. As you'll know, I was also pretty high on the Kings. I thought they'd make the playoffs this year. They're not winning clutch games. And the thing that was supposed to be really good about the Kings is end of games. They got DeRozan. Fox has been an unbelievable clutch player. And DeRozan's always been money in clutch time. We thought we put those two guys together, and they're going to win a lot of close games. I believe they're 5-9. So they have all these close games. They had another one with Memphis last night where they're within 5 points with 5 minutes to play, and they're just not closing games. And it's very difficult to imagine this team, given their defensive limitations, given that Domantas Sabonis is not really protecting the rim. So they have these reasons, they don't give up. They don't guard that well on the perimeter, and they're not forcing you to a good – they have structural inadequacies defensively, and we thought they could make up for it with pace with De'Aaron Fox, and then when the game slows down at the end, they have this DeRozan factor. And they have not won the close games. That's been a really big surprise to me. That was supposed to be something they could hang their hat on. 5-9, and the three-point shooting. They're one of these teams that are digging themselves out of a three-point hole. Fox has come back to, he shot really good for a couple of years, but he's never been a great shooter. DeRozan's never been a three-point shooter. But the two guys that are killing him, Kevin Huerter, who's supposed to be a marksman, and Keegan Murray, supposed to be a marksman. Going into last night's game, both of those guys were 28% from three. They were 1 for 13 in last night's game. So you add this up, the defensive deficiencies, the lack of three-point shooting, they're losing almost 15 points a game to their opponents from the three-point line. And they're still keeping these games close, which suggests that they're good. but they can't close the games, which was supposed to be the hat that what they were hanging their hat on. It's been really surprising to me.
Can I give you an uncomfortable thought that I've been noodling over, that I'm thinking about writing, that I don't want to be true, but it hit me. I'm a big believer that in NBA media circles, way too often, people write things, say things on these podcasts, tweet the things that they are sure that their colleagues are not going to make fun of them for. I think way too much media discourse is dictated by the silliness of people I respect and work with sometimes who are worried about how it hits and whether it's true. And in that sort of reality, and I guess I've made a career being able to just say this stuff that makes people uncomfortable, there are just some players who look on paper like they're really good and have not been effective. And for years, it was easy, not now, but to look at Kyrie Irving, right? Make that kid. You could just, in Boston, there was some Trae Young. It started to occur to me that DeMar DeRozan, who is a great guy, who is well-respected, who has been a clutch player, he did not succeed in Toronto, made a conference finals, but couldn't get past LeBron, goes away. I know Kawhi came in, but they win. Didn't work in San Antonio with one of the best coaches of all time. Didn't work in Chicago, and now it's not working in Sacramento. Is it possible DeMar DeRozan, for reasons I don't have my arms around, and neither does anyone else, great guy, good player, can score, just subtracts by his presence for reasons that haven't been discussed? Because he's not a diva, he's not a bad guy, but this is not the first time he's gone somewhere and it hasn't worked.
No, and I think what you're hitting on is true. I don't necessarily think that DeMar DeRozan is a minus. I don't think he subtracts. What I do think, and I think you're right to point out Trae Young. I think he's one of these players that has to be in the perfect situation. I think Karl Anthony Towns is another one of these. That we think of these players, big names, big stars, all NBA guys, that they can be the centerpiece of a team. And so when you put guys in that category, and some guys need the team. We saw Devin Booker for years. People say, "Oh,
Jimmy was like this."
Yeah, totally. And it's like Devin Booker for years, always an empty stats guy. But then you give him the right team, put Chris Paul next to him. He can. And I think DeMar DeRozan can do that, but not on a team that's lacking in the areas that can support him. We talked about how the Hawks are supporting Trae Young.
He's had a lot of teams.
No, he hasn't. But look at the teams. How have they supported? It's going to take a perfect team that, frankly, isn't as reliant on him having this methodical approach. It's a very tough way to win. Even Kevin Durant struggles to be the good go-to. He has not been at Steph or LeBron's level for as great as he is. He might be more talented than both those guys.
Oh yeah,
literally. But when you're reliant on elbow jump shots to be the focal point of an offense, it is extremely difficult. And so DeMar DeRozan, that's what he does. He's methodical. He creates his own mid-range shot. And it's, unless you have the perfect combination around that, and I think that combination is difficult to find, which to your point, 4 teams have tried to find it and failed at it. You got to have the perfect two. You got to support him defensively. You got to support him with three-point shooters because he's not a three-point shooter. You got to have a lot of things in place, and that's tough from a construction standpoint.
I mean, it's just I didn't love the DeRozan to the Kings thing, but I didn't hate it. I didn't. I was with you. I thought I can't remember where I put them, but I think I had them 6. I thought they were going to be really good or good this year. All right, this is another Friday show. I'm in your hometown. Where should I? Well, I can't really go out because where should I eat late? Any late food places you can think of?
I'll call Hey, did you feel the earthquake yesterday?
No, but I got the crazy tsunami warning that told me I was in danger.
Yeah, they did that. So where that hit is my hometown, Eureka, California.
You're from Eureka. I'm glad everyone's okay. That was
my
close. Dad
called me, and he happened to be out in the mountains, and he said the ground was rolling like ocean waves, like it was a big rolling one. It wasn't a thunderous, but he said it was pretty wild. But yeah, these little towns you've probably never heard of that are out on the cliffs. A little bit
I've been to Eureka.
Like Petrolia and Ferndale, they're like right on the cliffs, and that's where tsunamis would come. Some of those little town stores and stuff got hit, but in the city everything was fine. Okay. But yeah, I was wondering because my sister called me. She was like 7.3 in Eureka, and I was like, oh my God, yeah. So I was wondering if you felt that.
I didn't. I was on the 27th floor of a Marriott and didn't. I like feeling earthquakes. Like, as long as we're all okay, I want to experience it. I missed it. Yeah,
be careful what you wish for in LA. You don't want a big one.
Well, I no. As long as everyone's okay. That's my great big caveat. All right, that's another Beyond the Arc. Please, wherever you get your podcast, please subscribe, listen, of course, leave a 5-star review. You can also watch us on YouTube. We're live every time that we do this 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. We've got bonus episodes next week. We're doing nighttime shows after the Cup games on Tuesday and Wednesday, John Gonzalez and I. So check those out. You can go to YouTube and you can push the little bell alert so you know when we're doing our thing, special shows like that. He is Brad Bodkin. I am Bill Reiter. We'll see you back here Monday on Beyond the Arc.